We have Matthew Hazen, the CEO of Human Consciousness Support, on the Zoom call today. Matthew Hazen is a nanoparticle scientist, a father, a researcher, a seeker of truth, a freedom fighter, and he created a product called Masterpiece, which we're going to talk about today. I've been using it for a few months now. Comes in a little bottle, looks like this, and I've been having some pretty profound results on this stuff, as well as many other people in our community. So I wanted to bring Matthew on and pick his brain a little bit. He's got a lot of interesting research to share with us and a lot of just really cool stories that I think you guys are really going to enjoy. So keep watching this video until the end. Matthew, thank you so much for coming on. Why don't you just start this off by telling us about yourself and what was it that inspired you to create this product right here, Masterpiece?
My name is Matthew Hazen, founder of Human Consciousness Support, the company behind Masterpiece, the detox product that has, for the first time ever with the detox product, done kind of serious third-party tested clinical trials of all sorts and types to prove the efficacy or its how well it works in, dropping the toxin levels. I'm really just an average guy. I'm a dad out in Kansas. I had a great life. I tell people all the time I have a PhD in failure, so I've gotten to learn everything I've learned the hard way for the most part, and have certainly grown to appreciate the things that matter in life. I would say about 3 years ago, I've been on a health journey like so many other people my whole life. So I was into yoga at 19 years old, and other people were still just working out with weights or nothing else. I've always tried to be on the leading edge. I was definitely into all types of alternative healing modalities, not just quantum bioresonance machines or CDS, DMSO, you can just name it. I've tried it. I was exploring with it and came across a nano zeolite product that at the time was doing something very unusual for everybody, and it was causing everybody, most of the people using it at that time, to dream. And unfortunately, that company, very shortly after exploding and becoming real big, the owner started making trips out to the World Economic Forum. And this conversation, Sean's probably going to turn into a little bit of an acrid deep dive into transhumanism and the transhumanism agenda, how it's all linked together. And it's probably going to blow the minds if you have an audience that's really into leading edge reality. If they've gotten to the age of reason, they're going to love what they're going to hear today. So this company that had this product that was seeming to unlock the pineal gland, I guess you would say, started, lo and behold, they had biotechnology patents that were 15 years old. And they started trying to go find investors at the World Economic Forum in the Davos group. And they started traveling over there and doing their long seminars. And that obviously was troubling. And got a phone call one night and was provided with some interesting information about how and why their product was not working anymore. And that was that. About 6 months later, I fell into a total obsession that I couldn't get out of my mind day and night. And I was seeing the most amazing, healthy people in the world start to not be able to maintain their health. Didn't matter, just, they could have this alkalarian lifestyle, monofruitarian. And I thought to myself, well, no one seems to be out there trying to make anything that's going to work and depoison people. And so that led me on the path of thinking I'm going to develop a nano zeolite product. And I had a good friend of mine with me named Matt Senna, who is a terribly great researcher. And so whenever we would need to look up the next step, I could send him on deep dives. And through whatever you want to call it, I don't know if there's divine intervention or not, destiny, however it works out, I found myself in a camper with an ultrasonicating homogenizer, a nanotechnology device that shoots gamma rays and the most annoying loud sound for hours. And it would be going all night with my family going crazy, my dog running all night, hating it. I was trying to figure out how to get this zeolite down to a nano size. And I was failing and blowing out these titanium bits on it. And I put into my phone Nano Labs I walked outside and started walking up and down the gravel road, and lo and behold, right up the road from me is one of the biggest, if not the biggest, nano lab in America. And I happened to catch a guy who, and I explained, hey, I'm got this ultrasonic cadmium homogenizer, and they don't get phone calls like that too much. And I started explaining what I was doing wrong, and he said, I need to pass you over to this other guy. And he ended up passing me over to the founder of Forest Biotech, who was the chief scientific officer for Kansas State University at the time. And I explained to him what was going on. He thought it was interesting, told me to call him back in a week because he didn't know what zeolites were. Obviously, his background was in synthetic, nefarious, gain of function stuff. And he and me began a friendship. And through that friendship, he reverse engineered some of the highest top rated nano zeolite products. And when you do that, I know Biden destroyed the term, but it's called, then you build back better. You don't reverse engineer to catch up. You reverse engineer to catch up and make it better. And so their formulations were severely lacking. And thus the story of Masterpiece began. And, what we set out from the very beginning, when we knew that we were taking a natural, highly sourced, the highest quality clinoptilolite, and we were making it down to its smallest size, which is smaller than nano. It's sub-nano. It is in the picometer range. And what we know is how to get it down to that size and keep its magnetic charge. It has a highly negative magnetic charge. So just think of magnetism in your head. And toxins, poisons, forever chemicals, heavy metals, neurotoxins, genotoxins, toxins, magnetic toxins, they all have one thing in common. 99%, there's very few exceptions. And they all have in common that they have a positive magnetic charge. And if you know anything about magnets, you know that magnets opposites attract. And so, but also not just poisons, but also minerals. And everybody should be aware that although you're made up of trillions of cells, each individual cell is made up of millions to billions of individual molecules. And if you counted all the molecules, you are 99.7 or 8% water and minerals. You are water and minerals with a millivolt, with an electrical charge. You are not vitamins and all these supplements and all this other stuff that you take to try to make your body feel better. And so going along with that, minerals and toxins have positive magnetic charges. Poisons have stronger ones. That's why when you take in poisons, they get stuck, trapped, and they can push a mineral out of the way. Because if you think about the affinity of the strength of magnets, a stronger magnet would push out a smaller one. And so that's why we have a worldwide health epidemic, because people are poisoned and they can't detox effectively or remove those toxins or chelate the toxins out because they don't have products that work. Else they would be getting the results that Masterpiece did. And so what we knew is that we were going to be mercilessly attacked. Everybody that was taking Masterpiece was getting profound results across the board. Anything that you could imagine, all your health issues that you have, the root cause of them is the poisoning that's in your body. If you think I'm wrong, I'll just make a very simple fact. If you go out into indigenous tribes or when the people are way deep in the rainforest and they're not a part of any colonialism or flour, sugar, processed foods or anything like that, and they're living like animals, they don't know what sickness is. Those tribes literally never get sick. They don't know what sickness is. So that proves it. It proves it's the poisons, people. Okay? So when you can get out the root cause as fast as you can, not that we can ever stop it because it's coming back in, and you're replacing it with what we call zeolite Z. What Masterpiece is in a nutshell is clinoptilolite zeolite at its smallest form, much smaller than the poisons that are stuck in your body right now, with magnetically coated minerals. We take the highest source clinoptilolite, get it down, and we take the highest sourced broad spectrum minerals that magnetically stick to it, and it goes into the body. And once the zeolite grabs a toxin out, it replaces it with a mineral. And it makes what they call a cation exchange, but it's an upgrade. It's an immediate upgrade. And you don't have the typical detox reactions or Herxheimer reactions because it's an immediate switch. And we had to start really holding back launching this out as big as it could go because we had to get the infrastructure, the supply line, everything that it takes to run human consciousness support. We had to fortify and shore up because when you have something that really is going to benefit and change people's lives, our system is not set up to like that, to like Masterpiece. There's no part of our system, including the alternative health medicine space, where you got all these alternative, all natural, supposedly health products, and they're telling you got to take 20 different things to be healthy. All those people don't like Masterpiece either. And we became aware that we needed to do trials, clinical trials. Instead of me preaching to people, this is how great Masterpiece is, it's better than everybody else's stuff, doing all that, we knew we had to do every type of trial we could find. And our initial pilot study, and I don't know if you can screen share, Sean, but we could barely look it over just real quickly so that people could actually kind of see the progression of how our studies went. Now, keep in mind, other companies that are selling you stuff right now spend all their money and time figuring out how they're going to market it. They never spend their time proving how it actually works in a real way. So what we're going to do is we're going to look at what's called actual real science, not talking head science. And if we can go to the slide that's 4 ones up from that. Yep, right there. No, the very top. Yep.
Okay.
So you're looking at the top. This is a peer-reviewed, published study. It was published out of India because guess what, everybody? Your beautiful America won't publish this study in their medical and scientific journals because they're a bought and rigged system. And they don't want you to know that something like Masterpiece works and exists, literally. So this was a chart that's from our first study. You're looking at a study where we actually measured the intracellular, or what's called inside the cell, intracellular level of electrical capacity test, which tells you the level in the lymphocytes, which are the garbage collectors, of graphene oxide, of PFOs, PFOAs, polyethylene, which is all the different hydrogels, and polypropylene, which is kind of like your hot coffee. It's the little plastic on the inside of the cup that leaches real bad. And if you look to the left, just because we're going to zip through these, you can see how high the levels actually started. And if you don't know if those levels are high or not, at the top of that chart is the actual cutoff of what the machine could measure. So you can see a lot of the levels were actually out almost to the top. One of the people in this study was a 24-year naturopath who was a very healthy living person, whose graphene oxide levels started off at 510. And you can see the middle chart. That is after 35 days of taking Masterpiece. Keep in mind, we're talking about blood tests, the intracellular level of blood. You want to see these levels go down. You don't want to see these levels go up and go down. You want to see them come down. The blood needs to get clean quick. And you can see how all the levels of everything started tracking down immensely. And then by the next chart, which is the third chart right there, that's 90 days, which is taking 2 bottles of Masterpiece, which is taking 10 drops a day of Masterpiece. They were able to further track down their levels. And unfortunately, we're never going to see these levels go all the way down because We live in an environmentally polluted, microscopic nanotoxic world. And every breath you take, everybody, no matter where you're taking it from, no matter what filters you think you have, it's polluted. Your food's polluted. Your water's definitely polluted. And, so you can't get it all out. But we were able to, if you want to go to the next chart. And so this is another chart from our initial pilot study. I will say, keep in mind that at day 35 and day 90, we literally, and if you could blow it up just a little bit, we started testing for more things such as fluoride, glyphosate, these type of toxic chemicals. And what that chart shows is how much the percentage of graphene oxide, PFOs, PFOAs, the different compounds that we tested for. This shows the percentage of how far they came down. And I can't read it, Sean, but you could probably read it. The first one's graphene oxide, I can tell.
We've got percentages around 70%, looks like 75, 77% on the PFO. Yeah, graphene oxide is up around 70%. Polyethylene is up around 25%.
And so you got to ask yourself this question. When we're talking about graphene oxide and hydrogel, we're literally talking about the components of the mRNA delivery system that's in COVID vaccines, literally. We're also talking about what's in the air and the environment because it is being dropped on us. Or at least it's in the air somehow. Maybe those lines in the sky are natural. Who knows? And I'm not an expert on it. I don't remember seeing them as kids. That's the only thing I remember. And what we know is, picture this, and we're going to get into the next studies, but here's the big ask, everybody. When you're talking about what are you going to be okay with having in your body? Lead, mercury, are you okay with arsenic or aluminum or barium? Or how about like graphene oxide or like neurotoxins like cesium-137? Or how about if it's okay if you just have a little bit of gender dysphoria chemical in you, which is called atrazine, where the boys want to be girls and the girls want to be boys? Those are all things that we've tested. The big ask is, which of those things do you want in your body? Which ones are you okay with living with? And I don't think anybody's going to say any of them. They're going to say, well, none of them, of course. And everything that Masterpiece has had tested by a professional study coordinator that we've turned around and peer reviewed, it's made the highest level of science, which is peer reviewed status. If you can write a paper which has an abstract summary methodology, it has the references, and you have to have a lot of references. And then it has to be irrefutable. And then it gets sent blindly, you don't know who gets it, to 3 peers who put their reputation on the line by approving your scientific work and research or not. And so that's what we do with all of our studies that we're looking at here. And so do not be fooled. This is the highest level of clinical studies that can be performed. And so this was our initial pilot study. From this, we knew that there was a transhumanism phenomena in terms of we were starting at this point to even hear about people's bodies, just like phones and electronic devices that emit Bluetooth signals, that people's bodies were emitting Bluetooth signals with identifying MAC address, which stands for Media Access Control. And we knew that the main components that were involved in that was graphene oxide, lanthanides, which is the heavy metal list that is responsible for making the exact same hardware that's in your phone right now, that's in your laptop, that's in your computer. They figured out a way how to get that down to a nano level, 50 nanometers and smaller. I've read the actual studies. That's a part of the stuff when we originally started vetting how to do this, like what are we up against? And we knew that they are essentially getting the components of the hardware and technological devices down to the nano size, putting it inside of your body. And they figured out a way to assemble it where it self-assembles in your body, which is a process that is called Tesla, like the Tesla cars. Haha, that's great. Tesla phoresis, P-H-O-R-E-S-I-S, Tesla phoresis. And through that process, people are actually, through that process, we are of LED lights and 5G pulse waves. It will connect this technology inside of you until you are assembled enough, the hardware is assembled enough inside of you to emit a Bluetooth address. And so we became aware of this and we started having the thought. And at this point, by the way, let me back up just real quick, Sean. When we got the results of the initial pilot study, Caroline Mansfield was the study coordinator. And again, I'm just a regular guy in Kansas. And so when we actually got these type of results, I knew I was in way over my head. And I told Caroline Mansfield, what are we going to do with this? And that's when she told me that I need to get a hold of a gentleman named Dr. Robert Young, that he had been involved in this forever and that he would know what to do. And that's when I reached out to Dr. Robert Young, who took a long time for him to look at everything. Once he did, he knew that although at the time he was facing a trial for crimes he never committed, and they were not offering him a plea deal, they were making him fight for his life. And he spent his last 2 years, he's now incarcerated, fraudulently, completely wrongly, by a rigged and totally corrupt judicial system. And he spent his last 2 years of freedom making Masterpiece better and getting it fortified so that it could be unleashed to the world as the solution and antidote to the MAC address phenomena. And way before we did our final study, which we'll get to in a second, he was screaming on every show, screaming from the rooftops, doing hundreds of shows that are all highly shadow banned and censored, and was trying to tell people this is the antidote. This will stop the MAC address. And he was going by the fact that it removes the components, and thus logically, he assumed that it would turn off the MAC address. If we can go to the next chart, Sean. These are graphs of our hair and urine analysis. This was our second study, and I'll just very quickly go through it. We took people's urine, we took people's hair, we put them on Masterpiece only. That was the only variable. And when you're looking at the numbers of like 190 some percent for aluminum, 260 some percent for arsenic, cadmium is 342%. What that number represents when you're looking at those heavy metals, there's lead, there's mercury and nickel. You are literally looking at a placebo-controlled study. So if you look at the red, that is the placebo control. That is people that believed they were taking Masterpiece. It was a perfect placebo. It was put into Masterpiece bottles at the same saltiness as regular Masterpiece. And they believed they were taking Masterpiece. So they did get a little results because the placebo effect is very real. But when you're looking at the number, you are looking at the difference. When you're talking like 198% of aluminum, you're looking at the difference between someone who thinks they're taking Masterpiece and are actually taking Masterpiece in terms of how fast those metals are mobilizing and being released from the body. And so when you take Masterpiece or any effective detox product that's chelating metals out effectively, your original starting level, or what I would call the baseline, that level, if you are starting to detox, at first it raises and it goes up. Why? Because you're releasing and purging and getting those metals out. So all of a sudden, your body, which was storing these stuck, trapped metals, begins to release these metals at a feverish rate. And literally, when you go to hair tissue mineral analysis practitioners who read these charts for a living, such as Will Houghton, who reads our charts and our studies, who's the longest running practitioner looking at these charts for 15 years daily. They are wanting to be able to see a 20% change. They want to see a 10 or 20% change because that means the body starts to mobilize and get metals out better than it was. But when you take Masterpiece, the main metals come out hundreds of percent faster, and they've never seen anything like this. You're dealing with an all natural product. It has 2 ingredients in it: zeolite, natural clinoptilolite, and C plasma, and it's structured together in a very fancy structuring method. And so what you see is your body's ability to get those things out. So then your body is able to heal itself. There's nothing that you will ever take that will heal your body. Your body gets healthy enough from being depoisoned enough that it can heal itself. That's why when people are taking Masterpiece, they get sick less and less. They feel sick less and less. When they do start feeling sick, they feel sick for a lot shorter period of time. That's natural. Can we go to the next chart? Then we did a glyphosate study. Glyphosate is a big one in America, and really it's big all around the world, unfortunately. Glyphosate originated as what you would call DDT, if you remember DDT. Well, DDT got shut down, and Monsanto or Bayer had them. I know one bought up the other. DDT became apparently, obviously, very toxic, and so they shut it down. And then they came out with Agent Orange, if you remember Agent Orange. Then they shut that down, and then they came out with glyphosate. So it is the 3rd generation of some of the worst poisons ever put together. And you can see the chart. There's 3 lines on it. The one on the left is the beginning levels. That is 27 different study participants. And you see in this study total, there was 27 total study participants. By day 35, you can see that it had tracked down to 168 from 345. And then on day 90, which is 2 bottles of Masterpiece, your glyphosate levels are down to 118. Unfortunately, the fact is, Sean, we live in a world where no matter where you live, no matter how clean a food you think you're taking in, you have been poisoned. Most of it's coming through the air. So everybody's levels, no matter how healthy, no matter if you took the shots or not, start off high. And we want to see these levels come crashing down, and which we see with glyphosate, which is a huge neurotoxin that is affecting the health of everyone. You can see that you would feel a lot better if your levels were at 118 instead of 345. And so if we can go to the next one, we then knew that Robert Young had wrote a lot of checks about Masterpiece that Masterpiece needed to be able to cash, so to speak. So we needed to be able to put our walk with our talk, so to speak. So what we did is we hired Caroline Mansfield, our study coordinator, had to find the best technician out there. We knew that there was a Bluetooth documentary, a Linux documentary, the phenomena of human beings' bodies emitting Bluetooth signals, no matter how strange it may sound to some people. That phenomena was real. It was irrefutable. And now we needed to do what's called an intervention study, which is trying to find our longitudinal study, which means an ongoing study. And we needed to find out if Masterpiece, in removing said, ingredients, graphene, oxide, and all the components that would make a hardware system, we knew that we could remove it from the body. So we needed to prove that we could stop this MAC address from emitting. So there is a 31-page document. Maybe we can make it available in your description. I can send it to you. No problem, Sean. If someone really wants to geek out and see exactly what kind of waves it is that comes off a human being, because it's different than like a normal luggage tag or a tracker you put on a car, or the waves that come off of your computer. And it's a lot of information to unpack. But essentially, we started off with 30 people, but getting everybody to show up to a field in the middle of nowhere, literally, and all these people have been COVID vaccinated, PCR tested a bunch, and to get them to go do this weird study, they don't believe in any of this stuff, and take a product for 90 days or however long they were going to, By the time we started this study, we only started with 4, but we started with 4 really devoted people. And what was very interesting is at this point, we had done 4 different checks on them. So they had been emitting their MAC addresses for a long time, for months going into this. And 2 of the 4 were actually emitting 2 separate MAC addresses. So a person's body would be emitting 2 MAC addresses instead of just 1. And at 35 days, we had them come back out to this field. You're talking about setting up with Faraday cages. We're also talking about a bunch of naysayers and haters out there from all sides. And so we had to have a third-party professional production team that we had to hire. We hired David Icke's production team. And the entire clinical study, when the study participants would meet out, where it was cameraed the whole time with a drone, as well as 2 different stable still camera angles, and then a moving camera angle. So it's irrefutable. Nobody can say it didn't happen or that what was popping up on the screen wasn't popping up. And what we've seen at 35 days is one of the people who had 2 MAC addresses was only down to 1. And so out of the 6, beginning signals, we were down to 5. And we didn't really know what to make of that. And so when we were halfway into the 35 days to 78 days, I gave Caroline a call and I told her, because I wanted to see results. I was a little worried, to be honest with you. And I said, if someone was having a problem, so, okay, I'm emitting a MAC address and someone was in acute trouble, they wouldn't be taking a maintenance dose, which is 10 drops a day. I told her we'd be upping the dose, right? And so I asked her to please let everybody tell everybody to start taking 30 drops a day instead of 10. And so with 3 weeks left and from the 78-day period, all 4 people started taking 30 drops a day instead of 10. And by day 78, and this is all camera and the responses from everybody is so genuine and authentic. And there's 4 different documentary teams that are now putting together documentaries on this. Main one is David Icke's team. They wanted to do a documentary on it since it's their footage. And Matthew Sco, who is absolutely amazing and has produced The Died Suddenly and The Greatest Reset documentaries. By day 78, all of the people who had been converted into transhumans, who were originally emitting, identifying, track and trace MAC addresses, all of them were reverted back to a human that was not emitting one. In which case we proved that their decades of sick, evil, twisted, where they took all their resources, where they took all their research, and whoever's out there that made this sick technology, we proved that there is a solution to it. And that is a big win for humanity. Great thing about Masterpiece, and we can go to the last and final chart. Those red lines, that shows the 4 different study participants. The people, the red, all 4 reds, that is day 1. The next set of reds is day 35. The next set of grays, which are all gray, that is day 78, showing complete remediation of the Bluetooth signal. And, this is a huge effort by a team of do-gooders that have come together with the same mission to help save as many lives as possible and try to preserve a natural, beautiful future for all of our kids and all of our kids' kids. This was a big win for everybody. Masterpiece is the most affordable nano detox product out there by far, because it was made to help humanity. It wasn't made for profit and gain. And that's also why, instead of us putting money into marketing like everybody else does, we set out with a different mission, which was prove this thing works, so that the way it's been attacked, they haven't been able to take it out. And at this point, we're getting a lot stronger, and the haters are starting to figure out they can't beat it up and get rid of it like they've been able to with other products that work. And we're on a huge charge to now get this information out to the world to discuss why it's possibly happened, but more importantly, what to do about it so that we can help save our friends, family, and our communities.
Wow. That is incredible. Like the level of sophistication that is put into enslaving and controlling an entire race is it's just so profound. Matthew, could you elaborate a little bit on who are these evil entities that are doing this? And how long has this been going on for, in your opinion?
You know, I wasn't alive 1,000 years ago. It seems to be quite a bit of proof that there's been planning going back as long as we can even start to track it. I would definitely say it's pretty well known that if you have biotechnology patents, or if you want to hear people like Harari or Klaus Schwab talk about the fourth industrial, the fourth level generation of the industrial revolution or whatever is on the human being, then we'd be talking about the World Economic Forum and any group which seems to appear to be every government in the world is a part of that too. So, that's the one place that they're very vocal about it from. What we do know is a lot more about the system every month that we deal with scientifically evaluating the proper ways, targeted individuals, people that used to be considered crazy for what they were saying. It appears now that they were all a beta test as they, in the 60s, they would put remote electrodes into the brain and see what would happen with brain waves. And they put LSD into you in the 70s and see how your brain waves would react. And by the 80s, they were doing bioimplants with people. And people would say, I got an implant in me. And everybody was like, this guy's nuts. Get away from him. And it appears that they were shrinking the technology. We started hearing in the 90s little talks about things like smart dust. And Klaus Schwab, when he said, oh, we'll have something the size of a grain of rice. It's a lot smaller than that now. And they figured out a way how to actually drop a computer that controls you into your body and get it to assemble. And so, we're dealing with a group, however big they are, that sees us purely as a commodity and as a resource. And make no bones about it, people. If you think silver and gold is worth something, or if you think barley or corn or your cash is worth something, there's nothing within a hundredth as being as lucrative as a slave. And so for them to enslave you from afar, 9 billion people on earth, to control them, program them, take them over, slide this agenda in, they own all the resources, they own all the history, they own all the communications, they own all the algorithms. I would say that if you got a guy such as Bill Gates and he opens up Microsoft and he develops this kind of technology, and then he goes on to want to save humanity with vaccines. And if there's anybody out there that questions vaccines, I would just say, before you make a decision about how you're going to open your mouth up and defend vaccines, I would first look at a toxicological report. And I would look at the actual ingredients that they are willing to disclose is in those ingredients. And then you're going to see a long list of ingredients that if you gave your child even one of those ingredients, you would have your child taken from you for child abuse, formaldehyde, things like that, aborted cells from dead babies that were alive when they took the cells from them, by the way. They had to, with no medication, by the way. So they aborted live babies, and they had to literally take out kidney cells and other cells while the baby was alive. As sick and as hard to wrap your brain around as it sounds, before talking about defending vaccines. And you got a guy like Bill Gates who started Microsoft, then gets into vaccines. And now we're talking about hardware that's inside of people delivered through vaccines and PCR tests. And now that same man owns a lot more farmland than anybody else in America and has appeal. And we're learning now that the chemicals and things that appeal, we don't know just how deep their nefarious technology is, but we know that they are absolutely running us off a cliff. They are our population in the world is substantially down. Anyone listening to this knows that they're having to fight keeping their health levels and their vitality up. And a lot of people have just accepted not feeling good a lot of the times as if that's normal. Remember, when we are not colonialized, we're in the middle of nowhere, like at the beginning of our broadcast, people don't get sick. You're supposed to be like a wild animal that doesn't know what sickness is. That's why all these old tribes don't have a word for sickness in their languages and stuff, you know. And it's I would say that it probably has infiltrated every last segment and aspect of society and civilization. And they are probably running the highest scale. I would say that if anybody wants to learn about the world that we live in and they're open minded to it, you want to learn how the controllers of the world, which you don't know, we're talking about the trillionaires that tell the billionaires what to do. Those people don't need accolades. They don't need to put themselves out and be liked by a society that they are enslaving. They don't like you. They don't need to impress you. They're not an entertainer. They're not a professional athlete that has an ego trip. These are people that lust for power the same way that you lust for everything in your life that you've ever lusted for and combine it. They've been programmed to lust for power 100 times more than everything else that you lust for. Those people there, if you need to learn how they think, the methodology behind their quote unquote madness. And to do that, you need to read the book, The Art of War. I would say The Art of War is the only book that has made it through the history of all these world controllers that controlled the history and the narrative. They left their playbook, their template out because why? They're constantly recruiting to some degree to bring people in on some level. You can't, with their old technology, 1,000 people can't run 9 billion. They have to have foot soldiers and stuff. So they had to have people. That level of belief and understanding had to remain out there. So I would tell anybody, read the book, The Art of War, and then apply that into what you see in the world. And it will give you a very good understanding as to what we're all actually up against because it's not funny.
You just described Klaus Schwab's school for the World Economic Forum. They call them the young global leaders, and that's where they're recruiting these people. You can look this up. Like this is out there. They have their own website. They're literally recruiting people into the World Economic Forum through it's called their Young Global Leaders program. That's where people like Trudeau got put into power in Canada. And what they do is they infiltrate the governments and then slowly start to change the laws and the regulations for this enslavement agenda. You mentioned something.
It kind of sounds like what you just described, Sean, the same way that they inserted the Nazis into
Mhm.
America during Operation Paperclip. They move
Yep.
them in and then they move them to their specified locations
Yep.
using their resources to get the plants in there to build up the system. You just explained exactly kind of like a rinse and repeat, huh?
It is a rinse and repeat strategy that's been going on for, I mean, thousands of years, in my opinion, based off reading dozens and dozens of ancient history books. It's been going on for a very long time. And for anyone who thinks that you live in a free country because you're in the United States, hate to break it to you, but you don't. This whole entire country and pretty much every country and almost every landmass on this earth world has been infiltrated by these entities. I mean, except for those uncontacted tribes that you mentioned, where they don't have television, they don't have any of that. But for the most part, if you live in a
And
big
yeah,
city,
because they learned every time they
yep,
came in that they started getting sick. And yeah, and if you think we're in the land of the free, anybody, here's a fun fact for you. Then explain to me. Now you're going to learn a lot about a country by how they treat their prisoners. And a lot of our jails and stuff are talking about 23-hour lockdowns. Uh, and you have the death penalty. But you live in a country that has more people locked up in its prison system, probation system per capita than any company that has that recorded, any country, sorry, that has that recorded in there. Not just the countries going on right now. America has more people locked up in prisons than any country they've ever had records of. That's not the land of the free. That's the opposite of free, right?
right. And each one of those prisons is a for-profit corporation that makes money by getting more people imprisoned. That's why they use the government to write just millions of laws and codes and statutes and city ordinances and regulations because they need an excuse to just keep throwing more and more people in prison.
Hey,
Uh,
Sean, can I ask you a question?
yeah,
Do you think, and I didn't mean to cut you off, brother, but do you think it's funny that, or a weird coincidence, I should say, that, and anybody who's out there, please check this as I know this firsthand. In federal prison, the federal prison system, right? Which is the one that's ran by the so-called government. Okay, they have a canteen or a commissary that people can order from. And in every single federal prison system, you order what's called Keefe products. It's called Keefe, Keefe, Keefe.
mhm.
And so the prisoners, they can only buy from one store, and it's all Keefe products. Do you think it's a weird coincidence that George Bush owns Keefe?
That is a strange coincidence, isn't it? It's
Weird,
one of a million that you'll discover when you start studying this stuff. Is
weird.
you follow the money and it all traces back up to the same group, the same entities.
Yep, sure does. Sure does.
Matthew, you mentioned something a little earlier about gender dysphoria, which is referring to the phenomenon of all this transgenderism and boys thinking that they're girls and girls thinking that they're boys. And then you mentioned something, I think it was astrazine. Was that what it is?
Atrazine. Yeah,
Astrazine.
Atrazine. Yep, atrazine.
And that's something that we are being poisoned with. So would you agree that this whole confusion of genders, this isn't by chance or by accident. This is by design. This is a psyop. This is manufactured by these elites or these world controllers. They're trying to put something in our environment that is causing the gender confusion. Is that correct?
Well, they definitely scientifically, undeniably know that atrazine does, Alex Jones used to yell, makes the frogs gay,
Yeah, I
and he
remember
was
that.
known for that. But what it does is it makes the girls want to get behind the boys instead of the boys getting behind the girls. So if you're a frog, or, so it makes the girls want to, the boys, and it makes the boys want to be by the girls. And you see that a lot with the recreational drugs now that people take. If they take a lot of them, they always fall into this gender dysphoria thing. And this is what I would say to your question. And it's atrazine for anybody who wants to look it up, Atrazine. And the reason why I say that is this. Every year, no matter where you're at in America, you're supposed to get a water summary report from your water facility. And it's just a little one-page report. I'm sure you look at it. since it's not a bill, you throw it in the trash and you move along about your day. But next time you get that water summary report, look at it. Besides fluoride, ask yourself this: why do they need to treat the water with atrazine? Because it's in every last report. I've seen it in 3 different cities. It's water is treated the same way at basically every place. It's not going to be treated differently. At what point do they think it makes water cleaner for us to take natural, normal water and put atrazine in it? If they weren't trying to make this dysphoria and wussy out the boys and sissy out the men, maybe they're trying to keep us docile and confused and distracted for a reason.
Healthy, high testosterone, masculine men are very difficult to control. That's
right.
why.
That's right. That's right.
You mentioned something earlier. And actually, you talked about this in our private group chat also, but you were talking about the sea plasma water and how the turtles live really long in this plasma environment. And you also mentioned something that happened with the FDA when you were going, and I think it was in what country was it?
Spain.
Spain. Could you tell us that story?
Yeah, and this story has a really amazing silver lining. So, and the reason is because we ended up finding, lo and behold, a higher sourced, which we thought did not exist, and we would have never been looking for if this hadn't happened. But when we released our first initial pilot study, which showed that Masterpiece was significantly reducing the levels of graphene oxide in these harmful forever chemicals, microplastics, and the hydrogel, we ordered $70,000 of this marine plasma. So it's the healthiest part of the ocean where marine plasma is made. And it's a beautiful process, and it would take a while to explain. But here's the simple way to explain it. The sea turtles that live to be longer than any other life, except for lobsters, as I understand it recently, sea turtles live to be over 300 years old. The ones that live to be, they all migrate to the Ibiza Formentera region in Spain, which is where they pulled this marine plasma. And really well-known doctors, such as Dr. Tom Cowan, who's very well known as someone who knows about the viral myth. Virology is a myth. He's one of those. He sells this marine plasma still in the North America. They still will send it to him. It still makes it through customs, and the FDA still doesn't seize this marine plasma. Of course, Dr. Tom Cowan and others are not making Masterpiece with theirs, and we were. And so when we brought in $70,000, we're a brand new company with no investors. We put everything into it. We bought $70,000 in marine plasma. When it hit customs in New York City, the FDA seized it. And they told us at the time, oh, we're just doing a check here, blew us off a little bit. Again, Dr. Robert Young, who has been targeted mercilessly and has been around the block with getting products, natural nanocolloidal products, which is what Masterpiece is, out. He told me immediately, he said, I want you to know you're not going to get that back. Don't think they're going to give it back to you. And he said, but I want you to check this other source out because it's actually, you're going to find that it has a higher electrical charge, which means it's going to give you more energy, electrons. And it's going to have the same exact composition, molecular composition. And it avoids the FDA being able to seize it because of where we get it from, which obviously we don't let that out. And what's funny is the FDA blew us off. It was a total maneuver of trying to cut off the supply line because they cut it off and acted like they were going to give it back while they knew we were getting drained down in what they thought would be product. And then they came back after 6 months and said, well, we've decided to seize this fancy, highly clean marine plasma. Get this, everybody. And declared it. The FDA, your precious FDA that's there to protect you, declared it a drug, declared the ocean water a drug. And so, you know, again, the silver lining in the story is we came away with a lot higher powered product that was a serious upgrade and actually brought Robert Young into the formulation of, at that point, he knew how serious we were about getting this to the world and about what we were building it up. And at that point, he helped us with a few other changes, which was in terms of how to structure it the best, natural structuring. And so we came away with Masterpiece, what I call 2.0, which is even better. So that kind of backfired on them big time. But yeah, your FDA that allows your kids to get vaccinated and allows everything horrible to happen with all these synthetic, unnatural drugs, medications, took this precious, the cleanest part of the ocean and called it a drug on us.
Ridiculous.
Unbelievable, right? Except for it happened.
I believe it. You know, every one of these three-letter government agencies, they're all compromised. They present themselves as out there to help or keep things safe, but the opposite is true. All of them, every single one, the CIA, the FBI,
Yeah.
the FDA,
You know,
CPS.
at least the CDC has the correct. They usually flip flop what they're going to do, right? It's like the World Health Organization. They act like it's health, but it should be World Sickness Organization, right? At least the CDC has the right word for it. They call it the Center of Disease Control because yeah, they control the disease, all right.
Yep, they control the
Yeah, they
manufacturing
it
of
seems to
them.
be like if it's a regulatory body that's been created anywhere. Same thing with TGA out in Asia and Australia. It's all to control and keep people where, it's unfortunate, right? We know we have all these terrible hurricanes and weird fires and stuff that happen. And then FEMA, people try to bring in supplies and FEMA will take the supplies out and not let the people have them. It's terrible what we're allowing to happen around the world right now.
Yep, that's all by design too, everyone. All the wildfires, the natural disasters, those are also orchestrated. Those are manufactured. They have weather modification technology. They have direct energy weapon technology. They hire arsonists to go and help start the fires. It's a problem reaction solution, which is also known as a Hegelian dialectic. They create the problem. They wait for the reaction, which is fear. That's always what the government wants you to live in. And that's the reaction they want out of you is fear, because fear is an emotion that if you can keep people living in, it's much easier to control them. So they do this rinse and repeat thing called the Hegelian dialectic. They create the problem, they wait for the reaction, they come in with the solution. And the solution is always a very similar kind of thing: more control, more surveillance, increase taxes, take away your money, confiscate your wealth, increase surveillance, pass more laws, more regulations, and they want to inject you with things that have a bunch of toxins in them. Matthew, could you explain a little bit more in your own words? Uh, what is the pineal gland? How does it work? And what is the connection with Masterpiece and how it causes people to have more vivid dreams? Like, dude, I'm having the craziest vivid dreams on this stuff. After 1 week of taking this, I'm remembering all my dreams. My dreams are extremely clear. I'm getting like data downloads in my dreams. I'm getting premonitions in my dreams. I'm getting trading signals in my dreams. I trade cryptocurrency. Right before $1.1 trillion was just pulled out of the stock market, that dominoed into a correction in the crypto market. Right before that happened, I had a dream of a bear, which symbolizes the bear market. The market's going bearish. So I'm having these kind of dreams that are telling me what's going to happen in the future. It's crazy. Could you elaborate on that?
Yeah, absolutely. So your pineal gland is really close to your pituitary gland, very important glands in your brain. And it is easiest way to put it. You've all heard of the term third eye. It is your third eye. It's what you use to visualize things like when you're asleep and you're dreaming. But it has rods and cones in it, just like your eyeballs do. And it looks just like a pine cone, and it is the most sensitive part. This is probably the most important thing about it. Your central nervous system, which is attached to how you um, relate to the world. You got it. You see, you hear, you taste, you feel. That is all your central nervous system. The most sensitive part of your central nervous system is your pineal gland. It is also the one thing they want to desensitize the most. That's why they put fluoride in the water and all that. It is maybe the most important part of your body in terms, it is the most important part of your body in terms of your spirituality. You are an electromagnetic spiritual consciousness that is electromagnetically through salt, and that's a long story in itself, stuck inside of this physical thing that you think you are, this physical body. And the thing that causes you to know when your mom's about to call you, and they don't want that thing that makes you realize that everything you do, say, and are actually affects your environment. And the thing that lets you know that you're interconnected to everything and to all things, they don't want you to have that connection, because then you know you're a part of something way greater than what they could ever control. They want you to feel alone, depressed. They want you to be a narcissistic douchebag that, mistreats people because you think it's you or him, dog eat dog. And I would say that is the pineal gland in a nutshell. And the reason why, it's a very kindergarten lesson on, I guess, of why they wish to keep it from operating. Now, with Masterpiece, keep in mind that the fluoride and everything else, fluoride is only one thing that affects the graphene oxide, also affects it majorly. So does radiation waves. A lot of things affect your pineal gland. We do know that there is it happens to, it's a phenomena from taking Masterpiece, because of course we've never had a camera inside of someone's brain before they took Masterpiece. Like, okay, take Masterpiece, let's see what happens. But what we do know is when people take Masterpiece, for instance, me, I didn't dream for like 20 years of remembering my dreams. You start to dream again and feel more connected again. For me, I started crying again. I didn't cry for a long time. I can cry very easily now if we're talking about something that is really hard for me, because it turns your sensitivities back on. That's why you also see, a lot of times your sense of smell that got taken away from people. A lot of people from COVID pandemic. That's, there is no virus, but from the start of the pandemic, they'll get their smell back. Smell has a lot to do with, your ears, nose, throat doctors, because your ears, nose, throat, all that stuff is very connected. So, yeah.
Yeah, I can actually attest to that since I've been on this stuff. Everything feels more surreal. Like I feel everything more intensely now. My sight, my vision, like everything is just working better in my body. It's pretty crazy what this stuff is doing. I mean, just within me. Like the last time I felt like this is when I was doing water fasts and raw food diets 10 years ago, is when my consciousness felt like this. It feels like that again since I started taking Masterpiece, and I'm not on a raw food diet. I'm not doing a water fast. I went through this phase in life where I got super obsessed with the pineal gland. And I started studying, well, how do I make this thing work? How do I activate it? And that led me down the path of yoga, meditation, water fasting, and doing these crazy like raw food diets. And it was basically what I was doing is I was cutting out all the toxic GMO food. But back then I don't think all these forever chemicals were as present as they are now. So now it's like we gotta pull this stuff out. Um, there was one more thing I wanted to talk about. Oh, and actually a couple things. What's the deal with the country of Canada trying to ban Masterpiece, and how can people in Canada still get this stuff?
Well, yeah. So Canada, Health Canada, bless their hearts. decided that they are not going to allow natural products. They pretended like they had a way that you get your product approved. And then we found out from testing companies that that doesn't apply to Masterpiece or products like Masterpiece. And it is definitely a move by their regulatory body that acts like their corporation that's posing as their government. And what they do is they stop Masterpiece from coming in through the border. Uh, Now we do still make, and we went into finding out. We were also releasing a product which was Masterpiece for pets because our pets are just as important as we are. And we started testing it out on, first my pets and, a few other people's, and everybody tested on their pets. And what we actually found was that what works best for our pets is actually the identical formula of Masterpiece. So we created a Masterpiece for pets, and Canada unfortunately will not let Masterpiece in for humans, but it is available for your pets. And it is identical to Masterpiece. And so, uh, we do have a lot of pets up in Canada that need Masterpiece. And so, that was really hard and difficult to swallow when they did that. They did that in the same 2 weeks that the FDA confiscated everything. Right when we released that study, it just seemed like our payment processors, which was PayPal and Stripe, both of them held like $160,000 in money for no reason at all. They didn't really give any good reason. There was no way to get it back. They wouldn't release it. And, there is a well choreographed hit piece campaign from a bunch of so called microscopists that were making up these completely fabricated, nonsensical videos against Masterpiece, which, then they don't allow you to come in there and write it. They don't let you write in the chat. This is how anybody can see through this nonsense. They're basically trying to say, that was a whole nother story in itself when you're talking about Masterpiece being attacked. You literally had so-called experts claiming that C plasma, which is identical to your blood, by the way, folks, when you dilute C plasma down 3 times with water, it is identical to your blood, to your extracellular fluids. And so what they claimed on all these videos, and they were pretty good looking videos if you didn't know what to look for. They claimed that your extracellular fluids, because that's what Masterpiece is identical to, your blood composition, and natural clinoptilolite, which is found in oceans all over the world, that it was causing teslophoresis, are the nanoassembly of the graphene. They were literally trying to say that Masterpiece was causing teslophoresis. And so, yeah, Health Canada has been, that was an interesting challenge. And, we're really happy that if you're in Canada, you can still get Masterpiece for your pets. And that's a big win for your pets. If anybody accidentally took it, it'd be the same as Masterpiece, though. So it's kind of how that one.
Matthew, do you have any other like really interesting testimonials that you can share from just people in our community, people in the group?
I'll share. I have so many of them. Amazing claims that have been made in return in terms of like anything neurological. So people on the spectrum, so-called spectrum, and dementia, those kind of things. Amazing stories all the way around. I will say that Masterpiece removes poisons and toxins, everyone that we've tested for it. And everything related to your health issues is poison related. So with 6,000 testimonials, that's a big ask that you just asked me. But can I name you my personal one?
Yeah, of course.
I have a brother-in-law who is the craziest person you've ever met in your life. And what I mean is he's been in mental institutions since he's 17 years old, been on every type of psych meds, has been hearing voices his whole life, psych shots, gets shots every week, the worst shots you can imagine. If you guys don't know anything about psych shots, they are the strongest, worst of them all. And he's had countless ones. And so he originally thought he was the prophet with all this voices in his head telling him he's the prophet. And then he was Tupac Shakur. And so he'd started painting his face and everything black and rapping all the time and thinking his mom was his Tupac's mom. And then he thought he was a woman. And so he started wearing women's clothes and he was no longer, And so I would always have to keep him away from me because he was so triggered out. He tried to kill people all the time. He would flip out, just try to kill him, tried to kill his mom. It's been a real difficult thing for my in-laws. And lo and behold, they let him out of this mental institution because they had to. It's a long story. And he was so crazy that they kind of had him at campgrounds, and they'd go there for a couple of weeks and then have to move him around because he's very hard to control. He's 40 years old. And so for the first time, he ran out of his meds. And my wife thought it was always really sad and hard on her heart because she always thought Masterpiece would probably be the antidote to remove out all these things that make my brother crazy. But getting him to take it was impossible. So for the first time ever, he was stuck at campgrounds with no psych meds in nature, taking gobbles and gobbles of Masterpiece as they were putting it in his water. And I thought it would take years, to be honest with you, because he's so crazy. He's really beyond lunatic. And after about 2 months, it was funny because one day he didn't think he was a woman anymore, and he was wearing guy's clothes again. And then all of a sudden he thought he was Tupac again, and there was like a regression. And then all of a sudden he didn't think he was Tupac. He was like blackface again. And so instead of narrowing his body and thinking he's a woman and combing out his hair and all this weird stuff, and then all of a sudden he thought he was the prophet again. And then for the first time that I've ever known him, which is almost 10 years, for the first time ever, there was a guy before me that thought his name was Joe and realized his name was actually Joe. And he was all of a sudden allowed around my kids. And all of a sudden my kids got to have an Uncle Joe. And I've never in my life ever visually or seen any type of turnaround like that. And the only thing he changed in his life was getting into nature, not taking the petroleum-based prescription stuff that has countless harmful side effects that were obviously all the side effects he's been living with, and taking Masterpiece.
Matthew, you mentioned just now petroleum-based. Could you talk about how all the makeup and cosmetics products are using this petroleum base and how what's going on with the makeup and the cosmetics and the skin lotions and the shampoos and all these things that people put on their hair and their skin?
Yeah. And I wish we could show a video that we've actually created at Human Consciousness Support. It's actually of me walking through the Dollar General in my local area and just simply taking products like Old Spice, Axe, Dove, you name it, and anything that was going on the skin or in the hair. And you turn it over, and the ingredients, you'll see polypropylene glycol, or PPG, or polyethylene glycol, PEG, which is hydrogel. And then you would see EDTA, which is the other component of the mRNA delivery system, literally. And so these things are actually in our products now. And if it's transdermal, or if it hits your skin, you know that if something's small enough, it goes to your skin, obviously. And, we are dealing with everything. We all know everything's owned by BlackRock and Vanguard.
Yep.
If you're a big product, if Masterpiece wanted to be on the shelf at Costco or at Walmart or at Dollar General, Number one, they would obviously wouldn't allow it because it would cause people to feel too good, and then they wouldn't buy the 50 other products that they're buying to try to feel good that don't work. And so that would be quite a loss leader for them. And but if you're going to get on a shelf at Dollar General, like the example I just gave, you have to be bought up by BlackRock and Vanguard or by one of their companies, all of them. Every product at your grocery store, whether you go to Sprouts, Costco, whether you think you're eating organic, all of them are owned, operated, bought up in one way or another by BlackRock and Vanguard. They control it all. So this poisoning that's been happening, if they own it, which is everything, they put it in it. Period. Because they're what you at home listening to this is what they want. Their end game is controlling you. You're the lucrative thing that they want to control. They have lust for power way beyond your understanding, and you are the most powerful thing that they can control. And it's really hard to control another human being with invisible chains, right? So it takes it first off, you got to poison down everybody. And they're really good at it.
You know what else is controlled by BlackRock hedge funds? All the politicians, both sides, the Republican and Democrat Party, all the politicians, they're all bought and paid for by BlackRock. They're all
Yeah.
compromised. Everything, like literally every aspect of our society, from agriculture, education, communication, the mainstream media, so mainstream social media, these are all bought and paid for. They're all controlled. They're all compromised in one way or another. Matthew, where can people go to set up an account with Masterpiece? Where can people go to join our community?
Yeah, you want to create the accounts are free, and if you can provide them for people, you want to, if you're listening to this show, it would be appropriate for you to sign up with Sean's link. We are not an MLM. We are a we're e-commerce direct sales, and you want to sign up, which will take you to the Masterpiece site, and you want to sign up this account and see how it says Sean Logan right there. So that means that you entered with your link right there. The person, if they can read in the red, it says this is a no obligation account. This comes with, you don't pay for it. You never will pay a membership fee. You will never pay $1 into it. It is free. And it allows you, once you experience Masterpiece for yourself and you want to share it with your family, you will get your own free link, which you access on the website after you make your account. And your link, which is free, will, if you share it with your family and friends, will allow your family and friends to only pay $52.99 for a 45 to 60-day supply of Masterpiece, as compared to paying $57.99, which is $5 more. And so if someone just goes to the website and just orders, you're going to pay more. It makes a lot more sense to sign up so that you pay less and then you get your own affiliate link, especially because there's no catch or obligation or commitment attached to it. And so also on the website, you'll be able to access any information that you can possibly think of. And also, just so that everybody's aware, there's two forms of poisoning that's happening in our world. And this is the discussion for another day, but there is, oh, well, that was Robert Young calling me right now. So there's radiation and then there's chemicals. We've been talking about chemicals. There's also radiation. So there's actually a spot on the website too for EMF protection, but you can see where we have all of our research on this website. We have all of our hair test. We have an ongoing hair test where we have over 400 people right now. We have 400 people, Sean, out of 22 or 23 countries that are involved in our, can you go to the hair test real quick, just so we
Sure.
can barely show it to them?
Is that on this page?
Yeah, hair test at the top,
Oh,
right,
there it is.
right
I see
there.
it.
Yeah. And if you want, you can, and you can scroll down through it barely, but you can literally opt into our study right there for $369. It's almost a $600 value. And you can become your own doctor, just like Hippocrates tried to tell everybody. If you want to be wise, you better learn how to become your own doctor. And a hair test is a snapshot of 3 months long of what's been happening in your body. It's not just about your heavy metals. It's not just about your minerals. It's you have a digestive system. You have so many different systems, stress system, and it will tell you about all of them. And then you will get 3 bottles of Masterpiece, in which case you would take the 3 bottles, and then you would take your final hair test. So get this, Sean, for $369, you get 2 gold standard hair tests and 3 bottles of Masterpiece so that you can learn how your body has adapted and changed and improved from taking Masterpiece. And you will learn how your body works so that you will actually learn what you should be taking and not taking. And so we offer that. That's a very transparent company right there. Nobody else is selling detox products that they are putting their butts on the line with testing out their products nonstop, like we continuously do. Anybody new to Masterpiece can join that hair test. If you want to just order a hair test, you can order a hair test for $195. Anybody that shares out their affiliate link, guess what? You get a 25% payback. So once a month, as long as someone's owed $100, we will pay you back. We pay you your money. So you actually get 25% commission, if you want to call it. And the person above you gets 5%. So when we're selling a bottle for $52.99 as a company, this is how money hungry Masterpiece is. I'm about to tell you how money hungry we are. We're selling the by far the highest quality product out on the market anywhere. It is your absolute keystone product to be taking to be able to maintain your health in today's toxic world. And then you get to literally, you're paying the lowest cost, and we're paying out 30% directly to the people who should be getting paid. Not some MLM that has 7 or 10. And I'm not against MLMs. There is good MLMs out there. But, when you're buying something, if you're having to pay for 7 tiers of people, and then the people don't even know who's getting paid from their stuff, this is a lot more personable. This is a lot better, more customer service oriented. Everything that we set up was to be customer service oriented. And we prove it by everything we do. So
Thank you so much, Matthew. Do you have any like last words or a message that you'd want to end this presentation with?
we all have a beautiful world that we're losing right in front of our eyes, whether we want to see it or not. And if you don't think that you're not important, we need you. We need you at your best. We've been poisoned. We need you depoisoned. We need you connected to all of us. And we all need to put our very best efforts, whatever level of contribution you can bring into this, whether it's just having tough conversations with family members that don't believe in any of this or that it matters, or whatever you can do to bring it to the table. Because if you're alive and you're aware of what's going on, it's going to take every last one of us at this point. Masterpiece is a huge part of our survival. So we've proven now that we remove every type of poison there is, and that we've also proven that we can take someone who is quote unquote transhuman and through daily use revert them back to not emitting a Bluetooth signal and not being able to be controlled, not being able to be zapped and killed, literally. And so that's how important Masterpiece is. And it was made for all of humanity. That's why it's as affordable as it can be, instead of how much we can get out of each bottle. Because if it was about a product comparison and what we could charge per bottle, it would be substantially more. And so please, guys, give this a chance if you haven't, for all of our sakes.
Amazing information you shared with us today, Matthew. With all that being said, click the link in the description of this video, create an account with Masterpiece. I'm also going to leave some additional links to all the studies, the research, and a link to just join us in our community. Everyone, have a wonderful day.